Hey, good evening. He's Bruce the Blog.
And he's definitely Bazzo at work. And for the next 30 minutes, this is Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo.
Move it again when we have to talk.
Okay.
Can you feel it? Give it to me. Yeah. He was 15 years old, 37 inches tall, 37 pounds. Let me tell you, that's small. He had a lot of heart and a drive to excel. That's why I'm here with a big story to tell about Harrison. What? Harrison.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us on our very first show. This is going to be a weekly show, and it's on the channel you're watching every week. And it's a community affairs show brought to you by Penny Saver Community TV. We're going to be talking about politics, but also a lot of other things that come under the category of community affairs. It could be culture and family and youth sports, or just about anything that you'd be interested in hearing. So now I want to throw it back over to my esteemed co-host, Andy Bazzo, because Andy, you start off.
Well, first of all, the reason why it's community affairs because we both represent Penny Saver Community.
That's correct.
You have Bruce the Blog.
Right.
I have In My Opinion.
Right.
You also have Bruce the Blog, the blog.
That's right.
And I have Bazzo at Work, the blog,
Yeah.
which you can find the accesses from Penny Saver Community, how to get to them.
And you know, one thing, Andy, that's guaranteed to happen during the 30 minutes of each show, as you know, is that I may beg to differ.
I certainly hope so, or else people are going to be bored to tears of us saying, yes, you're right, yes, you're right. I don't like sitting in a room with people saying, yes, you're right. I already know I'm right. I don't need validation.
Well, I'd say you're right in more than one respect, right?
You could very well
in fact, right now, you're sort of leaning right.
At the moment, yes.
Right.
Now, listen, I know you wanted to talk about, because you were just at the Republican strategy meeting last night.
Yes.
This is Yorktown Republican Committee.
Right.
And you were going there to organize the debates.
That's right. Well, Penny Saver Community, you know, we go into every home every week, and so we feel it's our civic duty, really, to take the lead in the communities we serve on debates.
You had the same thing with North County News.
Yes.
You always took the lead.
Right, and North County News, of course, was the predecessor publication to Penny Saver Community. So, as we know, in Yorktown, both the Democrats and Republicans have announced their candidates. The respective party committees have announced their candidates. And on the Republican side, we also know that Michael Grace is challenging, or is attempting to challenge, the Republican nominee for supervisor, incumbent Susan Siegel. And we also know that Tom DiChiaro of the winery is now collecting petitions.
Winery at St. George.
Okay, thank you. Right. Because there's a lot of wineries in Yorktown, I want to make sure that everybody knows which one we're talking about. And Tom DiChiaro, who owns the winery at St. George on Route 6 in Mohegan Lake, is challenging the Republican slate of town board candidates. So
those are Dave Paganelli of
and
Travelers Rest and Nick Bianco, the incumbent councilman who's been there since, I believe, 1996, I believe.
Okay, that would be about 13 years. So I went to the Republican Town Committee. Actually, you know what it is? It's I know our director, Dennis, it's 18 years that Nick has been there. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis, for checking that fact so quickly. But we felt there should be, Penny Saver Community feels there should be primary debates. Now, we know that in primaries, in this case, only registered Republicans can vote, right? But the feeling on our side is the public, the electorate, in this case registered Republicans, should hear in a public forum what the respective views are of the endorsed candidates and of the challengers. The response is that the Republican Town Committee is saying, thank you very much, Bruce and Penny Saver Community, but we do not want to have primary debates.
Now, didn't they also overrule the fact that Susan Siegel and Michael Grace did agree to the debates, and they overruled them?
Well, no, I wouldn't say Susan Siegel and Michael Grace together agreed. I mean, needless to say...
You did talk to both of them.
Yes, well, right, but what I'm saying is there was no date set or no... So I spoke to Michael Grace, I spoke to Tom. They are very eager to debate. Susan Siegel had told me on her own she is extremely willing to debate whoever it is, whether it's a Republican.
But the party hierarchy overruled this.
Yes, that's what they told me. They
So
said
the
it was
official stance of the Republican Party
yes.
is no debates against these primary challenges.
Before the primary.
Now,
no
I
debates.
can understand this.
Really?
Yes, because
Okay.
you don't want to give somebody, your challenger, FaceTime on your dime. You're the incumbent. You're the party nominee.
But, Andy,
you're the party nominee. And these upstarts want to come in here and take the nomination you've earned and try to take it away from you, because in primaries, the voter turnout is so low that if Tom DiCiaro just got his customers that lived in Yorktown to vote for him, he could probably take the primary if they don't even know what he stands for, only because he serves a good glass of wine.
But a primary is an election. Primaries are obviously a very established and accepted part of our democracy and election process. So all of the aspects of what this candidate can do and what customers he has is irrelevant.
But it's the only thing that people look at. It's name recognition. The voter turnout is low. It's whoever gets the most people to the primary. They don't know. Nobody has to say a word during a primary. It's whoever can get their people to the poll first. It's a Republican primary. What's one going to say? I'm more Republican than the other? Though in this case it's true, because Tom DiCiaro is only the only registered Republican actually in the Republican primary. But, you know.
Yes, and as we know, the more local the politics, the less relevant your party affiliation becomes. We have an incumbent supervisor in Susan Siegel, who is a self-avowed lifelong Democrat. Her predecessor, Don Peters, ran and won as a Democrat. He's a lifelong Republican. So party affiliation at the community level doesn't mean a heck of a lot, right?
No, it doesn't. But like I says, who's going? But you're trying to appeal to the party faithful in a Republican primary or a Democrat primary. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But you're trying to appeal to the party faithful. So we're going to out faithful the next guy. But again, there's not really going to be a difference of opinion on solution. It's only a difference opinion of degree.
Right.
When you're dealing with an inter-party primary. The people that vote in primaries basically know the issues, know the kid. They're the committed. They're the people that read your blog. They're the people that read my blog.
Yes, right.
They already know the issues. They know the candidates. They probably even have their mind made up. You're not going to swing anybody's opinion in the primary. These are the people that are committed. When you get to the general election, that's when the people that ought to be committed get to vote. But right now, you just have the committed people
right.
Voting.
Right.
And
okay, but all of the arguments you're making, Andy, also apply to a general election and debates, and you have nothing against, obviously, debates for the general election.
Because
right?
now you have not just differences of degrees, differences in approach to government.
And you have differences in approach to government between members of the same party, without a question.
You got, let's say, Susan Siegel and Michael Grace.
Right.
They both stand for. Right, because I read her business platform, and I had a nice half-hour talk the other day with Michael Grace.
Right.
They both stand for making Yorktown more business-friendly.
Right.
But right now, Susan Siegel's been there 2 years. Michael Grace is saying the right words, but nobody is saying, let's get rid of this regulation. Let's get rid of this rule. That's how you make it business friendly. You don't put a lay stress on a golf ball and say this is change. Right now,
I guess you haven't seen me play golf then. But no,
all that's happened, Bruce, is that they've made the hoops quicker to jump through.
Right.
But they haven't changed the hoops.
And by the way, I just was on another cable show with Susan Siegel, Ask the Supervisor. And one of the questions, the first question I asked Supervisor Siegel is to talk a little bit about what she has introduced called a business revitalization plan, which is a very good step.
I printed it on my blog for anybody that wants to. On Bazzo at Work, you can find the entire revitalization plan unedited.
Right. And some of the aspects of it that she talked about in the few minutes on that topic that we spent, how can you argue with that? And when you're saying, both Michael Grace and Susan Siegel want a more business-friendly Yorktown, it's a little bit like saying you're in favor of motherhood and apple pie.
But
nobody's going to say you want a more business-unfriendly Yorktown.
But neither are giving specifics. Like right now, let's just not even a business friendly, how about a more person friendly town? You know you need the town's permission to put an above ground pool on your property? You need the town's permission to put an above ground pool on your property that even if it breaks, it's just water. Now, I understood you need permission for a below ground because you have a lot, you have construction that, you're disturbing. But above ground, but you need the town's permission. About, was it 5-7 years ago?
Isn't that the same in almost every town?
And no town should have the right to tell you, you should not have to go to a town and say, pretty please, can I have a pool on my property? It's my property. But if you don't like that example, we'll do another one. The accessory apartment law that Yorktown passed, I think it was 2005 or 2006, where if you put an apartment on your house, the town tells you what part of the house you get to live on.
Okay, right. I know.
But no, who is the town to tell you where in your own house you're allowed? But the Yorktown can. I don't hear any candidate that wants to make the town more friendly say, I think we should get rid of this rule. Right. They're keeping the rules. Right, nobody's getting rid of the rules.
That's a fair point.
And until they want to do this, the debate is useless.
Right. But I guess the response to that I would have, Andy, is they have to tackle one or a couple of issues at a time. And as you're pointing out, there are any number of things that you can protest as being what's the word? Nanny, right?
It's the nanny state.
The nanny state. But let's talk a little bit about again, without belaboring the point on primary debates. Assemblyman Steve Katz, who represents the 99th District in the State Assembly, and we know
right now very well.
Right,
you got to admit he's been.
And he won.
You know they call him Dr. No in Albany.
Yes, I know. I wrote about that. They call him Dr. No because he actually has the gall to question, when they're proposing something and they say how much it's going to cost. He says, "Have you done a cost analysis?" Which apparently his colleagues have never heard of. But we know Assemblyman Katz won without any support, right, from the major parties. I mean, he bucked the major party system, and he won very convincingly. I know in a conversation recently with him, he said, and I believe he's going to make this a public pronouncement, that he doesn't believe that any local political party should come out endorsing candidates, that the primary should absolutely determine who the candidates are. So he's opposed to what he calls pre-primary endorsements. What say you?
People that read your blog, my blog, or newspapers in general, they're looking for a way to look at things, to give them a perspective of what the issues is, a synopsis.
So are you saying, Mr. Bazzo, that people out there, or a certain segment of people are actually saying, tell me what to think?
Tell me the viewpoint I should look at this from. Tell me, is the general consensus the viewpoint? Right. Should I accept that premise, or is there another premise I should be coming from? I personally don't usually go from the common premise.
Right.
So, people look to you for this guidance, and to deny them the same guidance,
which a debate before a primary would provide. Go ahead, please.
If Steve Katz got his way, then a debate would be necessary. It would be integral. As it stands now, it's a waste of time because nobody's going to say, I'm going to get rid of this. They're just going to say, I'm going to work. They're going to give you the same sound bites. Nobody wants to make a commitment because everybody's afraid of offending somebody.
And I think what you're describing also speaks to, we talk about this all the time. There is, let's face it, a sort of group of people who see each other day to day in the media, in government, in a certain circle that talk about this all the time. But I think we have to remain cognizant how many people out there, our neighbors and other people with families, with young kids who take them to sporting events, Yorktown Athletic Club, Shreboke Athletic Club, pay that much attention to all of this, which is evident in the percentage of people who come out to vote, which is not a good thing.
But there is a reason why there are more people watching a parade than are actually in a parade. Most people want to have someone dissect this stuff for them.
Right.
And because of the age of the internet, cable TV, talk radio, they have found multiple places to hear people that echo their sentiments, but say it better. It's not they're looking for somebody to think for them. They've already thought it out.
Okay, that's
but they're
okay.
looking for somebody that can articulate
Yes, that's the word, articulate. Yeah.
their outrage, their concerns, and that's where we come in.
And then they're looking for somebody who, after they articulate their outrage and concerns, can moderate them and resolve their concerns.
Which is an endorsement. It's a resolve of a concern.
Right.
And to deny people what they've been looking for. They're reading you for a conclusion of the story. It's like writing a murder mystery and tearing out the last chapter.
Right.
People want that last chapter. Maybe it's because they've had it all their life.
Right.
And it's very tough. People are creatures of habit.
Yes.
It is very tough to change that.
People are not opposed to change, but it takes a while for them to adjust to change. Right?
But this would be a particular change I think they would buck against, not doing an endorsement. I mean...
Well, you just either buried my lead or stole my scoop. In either case, we haven't gotten to that yet. You say do you mean not doing a debate?
Debate or endorsement,
okay, well,
anything, because they're all intertwined.
Okay, but this leads into...
These are all intertwined of what people are looking to a show like this for.
Right. I mean,
remember, we're basing this show on what we do in the newspaper and what we do online.
Right.
And people that are coming to watch us are looking for the live version and the thought process we have before we put it in printed form. This is our thought process.
Yes, right.
I mean, you fight with yourself, I fight with myself. It makes for an interesting debate, but this is even better.
Yeah. And I hate beating myself up anyhow. So, but this is the time that I want to make what really amounts to an announcement that also by now will have appeared in my blog at ncnlocal.com and at pennysavercommunity.com, and that is Penny Saver Community, which is what some people in the North County News circulation area used to know as North County News. Penny Saver Community is a combination of North County News and the Penny Saver. We've converted every place there was a Penny Saver, we have converted to a weekly newspaper, as Andy held up before. Right. So this is now what all of you are receiving at home every week. You don't have to go look for it. You don't have to ask for it. You're getting it in your mailbox.
But it's specific
and
to your community.
Our decision is that we are not going to do, Penny Saver Community will not be issuing endorsements starting this year. And I'm going to quickly run down several reasons why, and then my esteemed co-host, Andy Bazzo, may beg to differ.
I will.
Well, what a surprise. Number one, the first reason that we're not doing endorsements, that Penny Saver Community will not publish endorsements starting this year, is that newspapers have changed not only dramatically, but the whole paradigm shift of what a newspaper is has changed, and that is epitomized by our weekly publication, which is unique. When newspapers started doing endorsements, Andy, I think you'll agree, they were virtually the only source of public information on elections and,
and there were so many.
Right, and your elected officials.
How many were there in New York in those days? 10 newspapers,
oh, yeah,
10
there must have
majors?
been. Not only that, but some of the newspapers had 3 editions a day, right? But things are different now. Now there's media all around us. We're surrounded by all forms of media. It's 24/7, it's instantaneous. And so people have all kinds of ways to go and find out about who's running for office. They don't need a newspaper to tell them who to vote for. There's plenty of information available. That's number one. Number two is that I can tell you the way endorsements are decided at newspapers, whether it's a daily or a weekly newspaper, this is boiling it all down. We will call in the candidates for about an hour and talk to them and ask them questions. And basically, between that and covering those who are already in office all around, all during the year, you make a decision. But how fair is that to somebody who hasn't been in office that we haven't been covering all year? So if you're boiling it down to an hour interview, I don't think that's the best way to decide and issue an endorsement. That's reason number two, and there's a couple of more, by the way. Why is it, this is a question, a rhetorical question, why is it that other forms of news organizations, namely television or radio news They don't issue endorsements, and I don't believe they ever have. And then think about this. Somebody who does take advantage of all of the information at their disposal is going to decide who they want to vote for. So isn't it logical to say that endorsements actually most influence the least informed people who need somebody to tell them? Okay, now, Mr. Bazzo.
People that read editorials or opinion want a conclusion to their story. They want to know, in the end, if you were voting, who are you going to vote for? Either the editorial board, even though they don't know the individual people, or Bruce the blog, or Bazzo at work, in my opinion.
Yes, okay.
These people, as much as you have other media to format, and you have other media that makes endorsements. Talk radio does endorsements all the time. That's media.
Yeah, and talk radio is not news.
No, they make more news. They make more news. They make more news, and they cover more news.
It's commentary. It's journalism. Commentary is part of journalism. It is not news reporting.
Except the news reports off of what goes on talk radio.
They comment on the news.
See, if the reporters weren't so damn lazy and go after their own stories instead of listening to the radio or Media Matters and take from there and say, oh, let's report on this because this is news. The only investigative journalism you have there is the National Enquirer. That broke the John Edwards story.
Right.
That broke the Monica Lewinsky story. That broke the... what's his name? Anthony Weiner's story. So
right.
The Enquirer. That's investigative journalism. Most journalists wait for something to come on their email box. But as far as editorial, it's not news.
Which by the way, is a sweeping, what's the word from my English class?
Indictment?
Glittering generalization.
Yes, but sometimes the generalization. How much investigative journalism do you really see out there outside the tabloids? Outside of cable news, who spends more on
What about 60 Minutes?
Would be a tabloid.
Okay. Okay. So your point is that the practice or the discipline of investigative journalism is dying. Is that?
Yes. So people rely on editorial and op-ed to do it because we find an issue we like and we study it. And we study it, and then we comment on it.
But then what you're saying is that, following your cause and effect, so to speak, then the editorial commentary these days would be based on less investigation, right?
No, it's based on more. Something bugs you as an editor.
But you're saying investigative journalism is fading. So then
right. It turns out we do our own research before we opine on something because they're going to hang their hat on us. They're going to call us an idiot or the smartest person in the room. So we have to look up the information ourselves before we opine on anything.
Okay, and going back.
That's investigating, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Going back to our policy now that I'm announcing here on not doing endorsements this year. So based on what you're saying, by extension, an endorsement at a newspaper should be the decision at the newspaper of 1, 2, or 3 people?
If they're more informed, if they've studied the issues, yes. Or at least, put it this way. We've talked about this before. I've never done endorsements in print because the paper did an editorial, and I can't. There should be one voice. We're still all Penny Saver or North County News. We're one voice in the end. And
okay, but when it comes to endorsements, I mean,
people want to know in the final analysis.
Is an editor at a newspaper who is responsible for endorsements, or one of several people responsible for endorsements? So you're saying they're more informed? That's their job, right?
It is their job.
Okay, I agree with that. They're more informed by the facts, and they are also informed, as with any other human being, by their own ideology and philosophy and
that's why an editorial is an opinion. People know this. Trust me. Nobody knows out of the blue that the New York Times is not a liberal paper. They know it's liberal. They know their editorial slant is liberal. It's nothing new that they should come out and endorse liberal causes or liberal candidates. But the news is when they switch and once in a while pick a conservative candidate, then you say, see, something's going on here, and now I have to think about this.
Right.
And the same thing. So people aren't, people know the slant of the editorial of the Penny Saver Community or the North County News or the Journal News or whatever. People they know the slant of my column.
Right.
I'm coming from the right. Once in a while, I veer a little to the left if there's something, because nobody's wrong 100% of the time.
Right.
So you you can't. And you have no credibility if you don't acknowledge when the other side is right. You have no credibility with yourself.
I agree with you. Yes. Nothing. Well, my philosophy is nothing is black and white. It's all.
I don't believe in gray. I think most things are black and white, but one side.
But you just said that you have
that the other side can be right, and
keep an open mind.
You should keep an open mind. There is a possibility that you could be wrong, not me, but there is a possibility you could be wrong. So,
although it's probably slim to none, but
see, I understand that.
Right.
See, I don't think you would pay me to be wrong, but that's another story. I couldn't resist that.
Okay.
But anyway, seriously, no. People want the end of the story.
Right.
And you have to take their needs into account. Right. To say we're not doing this for this or for that is to totally ignore the need of the customer purchasing.
Right. Yep. Oh, okay.
Your paper.
Right. This paper. Yes. Before we have a few
fast,
minutes.
Doesn't it? It goes fast.
We have a few minutes left.
You have some community news you want to talk about.
Right. And before I get to that, which I will in 2 seconds, on the next show, I think we want to talk about the state controller's audit of Yorktown. We can talk about that on the next show. Some of the other topics we want to get to are term limits, open space, which applies to any town. But right now, again...
And by then we will also know what the New York State Legislature has done in this session before they've broken for the summer. And we can talk about whatever new laws and new rules they have passed.
On marriage and other critical issues, yes. As I said, we've talked for the last 28 minutes about politics, but we also want to make sure we talk about the culture of the towns that we're covering. And so keep in mind that the next several days, the Fireman's Carnival is in Yorktown, and so make sure you bring your kids to that, because kids always love the Fireman's Carnival, which is at the Firehouse on Commerce Street. Right. Yeah, and adults, of course, adults like it too, and you might win a Cupid doll, who knows. I also want to mention that you can follow Bruce the Blog now on Twitter. It's Bruce the Blog. And please, if you have anything you want Andy and I to talk about, or any news of your own from your own neighborhood, or photos, you can always email them to editor@pennysavercommunity.com. Andy, do you have any final thoughts?
4th of July.
Right, and of course, be sure to check your weekly edition of Penny Saver Community that you do find in your mailbox for all of the great fireworks and all kinds of musical outdoor concerts that are part and parcel of probably, I would say, Andy, this country's greatest, most significant holiday in many ways, 4th of July, because that's why we're here.
That's right.
Why you and I
it's It's our country's
That's
birthday.
what allows us to sit here and talk about whatever we want to talk about.
Can we have a question of the week?
Okay.
Question of the week.
And by the way, please do remember that this show on Channel 74 airs every Thursday at 10 p.m. Of course, you can DVR it and watch it whenever you want. I mean, you can watch it every night, of course, if you're so inclined.
So the question of the week is, if Anthony Weiner wanted to borrow your computer, would you let him? You can email Bruce with your answer.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andy, for doing that. Anyhow, right now is about the time that we want to say the preceding, that the preceding opinions of the 30 minutes. Well, the preceding opinions have been my own.
And mine.
And you may beg to differ.
See you next week.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Great.
Hey, yes.
Can you feel it? Give it to me. Yeah. He was 15 years old, 37 inches tall, 37 pounds. Let me tell you, that's small. He had a lot of heart and a drive to excel. That's why I'm here with a big story to tell about Harrison. What? Harrison. Let me tell you now, he made us all better when we hung with him. He was a bright light that'll never dim. He never complained, never gave an inch. He stepped up to the plate and came through in the clinch. Harrison. Harrison.